as I've been long. The Black Lotus clan sends their regards.
Is this a challenge? It's premise!
Your reputation precedes you.
Ha ha! Perhaps, but you're still just a pussy.
Welcome to the motherfucking lady. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Some interesting comments from MVP co-founder Nakisa Badarian, who says, boxing's governing bodies must evolve. They need to evolve to allow for consistent matchmaking that is logical for growing brand and fan base. Too often, you see this mandatory from said country that has no recognition in the most important media markets. The product has to give fans the best possible matchups. That is the whole pitch that Zuffa Boxing is giving. Albeit a very flawed pitch, because by this rationale, there are a lot of fighters all around the world who would never get their crack at the apple based on their lack of notoriety, and how are they supposed to get any if they can't get any of the big fights? Need I remind you that it was only through the mandatory process that Errol Spence Jr. was able to land a fight with Kell Brock, because if not for that, Kell wouldn't have fought him coming off a stoppage loss to Gennady Golovkin. Would Anthony Joshua have fought Alexander Usyk willingly, if not for Usyk being his mandatory challenger? Or would Usyk have ended up in the back of the queue, and in his place, some other more familiar fighter that maybe isn't even as good as an Alexander Usyk? At the very best, what the mandatory process reveals is whether or not you deserve to stay champion, or if that honor should be transferred to someone else in combat.
In the heat of battle!
Though it would seem that Nakisa Badarian has taken a stance against the sanctioning bodies while hinting at a new league, a women's league, which Isan with an Isan, friend of the channel, is interpreting as a step in the direction of MVP becoming its own UBO, like Zuffa Boxing is trying to be its own UBO. Isan with an Isan said, here they go, LOL. So now opportunity is predicted on where you're from. MVP is dying to become a UBO. The logical fallacy with this argument is there are only so many marquee fighters to go around. If you never crown any new ones, eventually the well is gonna run dry. So these mandatories, pesky as they might be, are a necessary cog in the big machine to crown new champions and new marquee fighters. The fighter that is fighting this weekend, Jai Opataya, would not have gotten his shot at the big time if not for being the mandatory to Mayris Briedis. That's how he became IBF champion, and you want to eliminate that. No, what he says is he wants the process to evolve. But evolve how? You're basically saying that unless a fighter hails from a big boxing market and already has recognition, they shouldn't get an opportunity. You know what's worse is that at least one or some of the sanctioning bodies already operate this way. Why do you think the WBA hasn't already stripped Rolly Romero for not giving Shakram Giyasov a fight? Giyasov is his mandatory, but they've allowed him to hang on to that title long enough that he's now entering negotiations for a Devin Haney fight. What happens to the mandatory? They gotta pay you sanctioning fees to fight in your eliminators, to climb up the ranks to get the shot, so that when they get there, they don't get the shot. WBA already does that shit. And it's hard to say that the welterweight division is better off for it, because Rolly's not a good fighter. You can put a title in his hands. That doesn't make him a good fighter. It just makes you a part of the problem. And what about what happened in the featherweight division, when Mirko Coelho of Argentina ended up taking a back seat to Brandon Figueroa, even though Mirko is the WBA interim champion? How did Brandon get a title shot ahead of Mirko, who was already interim champion before you ordered the fight? The fight between Brandon and Nick. Ideally, the way these ranks are supposed to work is the top talent is supposed to permeate to the top to thereby get their opportunity to prove they're the best in show. But what some of the sanctioning bodies are doing, like the WBC and the WBA, is blockading that, preventing it from happening. So you end up with weaker divisions, weaker champions, on the premise that they're a little bit more popular or more marketable than some other fighter. But how is that other fighter supposed to gain any popularity if you don't make the fights? Now, some people are under the impression that MVP wants to become its own UBO on the heels of this newly inked ESPN deal. They want to form a league of their own.
Why?
Well, we know why Zuffa Boxing is doing it. They want to create their own biosphere to mimic the success they've had in the UFC, which very much is a closed-off environment. Though hearing what Nikisa Badarian had to say about it, it sounds like he doesn't want to have to deal with mandatories. The argument in favor of keeping mandatories via sanctioning bodies is a lot stronger than eliminating them, because you'll never crown new faces and new champions if you're always having your pick of the litter.
Marquee value wanes and fighters get old, so you need a fresh cycle of fighters coming through to keep things on the up and up.
For the health of the sport, and as it pertains to the fighters, the reigning champions, what mandatories sometimes do is afford them a break from the big fights.
Because they can't all be big fights.
Frankly, I think there's something unethical about allowing a champion to set their own schedule when, if they have it their way, they might only fight once a year, keeping the title out of circulation. Having mandatories, some ways prevents that from happening, keeps a champion active, keeps the fighters fighting. So I don't agree with what Nikisa Badarian is saying here. Mandatories are a necessary evil. They always have been, sometimes pesky,
but still necessary.
I love what Nikisa Badarian and MVP are doing for women in sport, women in boxing, but this is one instance where I can't agree with him. You can't eliminate mandatories.
You shouldn't. If you do, some of those up-and-comers that you're developing would never get an opportunity to fight for a title because there'd be no reason to give them one.
Fight that I would think that would generate the most amount of interest at 135 would be Tank. Now, I know Tank's got some legal issues now, and I don't know what his status is currently.
I would love for it to happen, but the way that he went on, like, social media and kind of, like, bashed me in a way to where it's like he made it seem like I need him. I just feel disrespected about it because at the end of the day, I'm a grown man. I make my own money. I'm living a spectacular life. I don't need nobody. If he feels as though I need him and if it's that kind of stuff, then it's like, whatever. I'm not in need of that fight.
He's not wrong. He just proved it in his last fight with Teofimo Lopez, where he scored a decent-sized payday and put on a career-best performance. Now, granted that commercially the Gervonta Davis fight would be bigger than the Lopez fight, but commercially,
it's only a big fight if there is a fight. If you can make it. Takes two teams, two guys to make a fight, but only one to fuck it up.
That guy would be Gervonta, who his supporters and his fans always say he's the A-side, going as far as saying that he is now the face of boxing, but that would put the onus on him to make the fight with Shakur, and he clearly doesn't want to. Every time the media brought it up to him, he blew it off.
So what is Shakur supposed to do? Go cry in the corner? Wait by the phone? Stagnate his own career waiting for Gervonta to give a damn? He's moved on.
Do what David Benavidez is doing and periodically bring him up on every podcast.
He's moved on.
Bring him up in every interview as a means of promotion. I like the stance that Shakur Stevenson is taking, and he's right. He doesn't need the Gervonta Davis fight. If the fight never happens, there are enough other options on the table that he's going to be all right, and he's going to make money.
All those kids that were at lightweight are Teofimo Lopez, Shakur Stevenson, Devin Haney. They've all moved on, even Brian.
Flying Ryan Garcia and the Victorville Volvas are now at 147. He's coming off a win over Mario Barrios. He's a world champion now. Ryan has other options, not exclusive to fighting Gervonta again. They don't need him.
So where does the sentiment come from that they do, or that Shakur does?
From Gervonta Davis's fans, who simultaneously give him a pass to not fight the majority of these fighters while insisting that these fighters need him.
What?
They give him a pass to not fight Devin Haney, to not fight Shakur, to not fight Teofimo and anybody else who can fight. They give him a pass to not fight the majority of his contemporaries while asserting that his contemporaries need him.
What kind of dysfunctional shit is that?
It's the kind of shit you now find in the American boxing space, where they rather argue about what would happen in a fight and who would win than see it play out. They're so deathly afraid. They would rather leave it to their imagination than find out if Gervonta is truly as good as they think he is. But I know he's not, because look at what happened in the Roach fight. That's the same Lamont Roach that lost the decisive decision to Jamel Herring. Jamel Herring, who was beat by Shakur Stevenson.
The mental gymnastics that go into putting Gervonta Davis on a pedestal need to be studied.
Why do they do it? Why do they go out of their way to put Gervonta Davis on a pedestal just for him to continually fail them? It's because to them, he's supposed to be the ambassador of a culture.
What culture? Woman-beating culture? Coward culture? Ugly tattoo culture? What culture?
That's what the rationale is. If you see so many people going so hard over this kid, who's greatly lacking any real legacy and career accolades, it's because they view him as some sort of ambassador of a culture, while simultaneously tearing down fighters like Naoya Inoue that actually have a legacy.
Hail from a noble culture.
The Japanese are brave and true and good, unlike the dog shit you see over here in America.
Have to twist that little homo's arm to get him to box Shakur Stevenson, while Shakur Stevenson pouts that he won't give him the time of day. It's all very infantile, very childish, as Shakur asserts that he's a grown man.
Gervonta Davis is older than him, and the whole fucking thing reads like some junior varsity shit.
I look at all these kids, no matter how many belts they win, as the Pee Wee Football League.
These are not fighting men.
The responsibility of carrying boxing on the back of the fighters is left to these guys, and you see where boxing is in America. You think that's a coincidence? That it's not as exciting and not as popular now as it was in previous eras? Well, look at who the flag bearers are.
Compare that to the guys you've got in the UK that you don't have to twist their arm to get them to fight each other, or the guys in Japan, even the guys in Australia.
See, wherever you see there's a big boxing boom, it's where the fighters are willing to fight. You don't have to twist their arm to do it. But in America, everything's a trip to the dentist. Everything is pulling teeth.
Right, if you don't want to fucking fight, then don't fucking fight.
Believe me, the sport's not gonna die out because Gervonta Davis is too fucking scared to box Devin Haney or box Shakur Stevenson. The show will go on. It already is. There was something that Oscar De La Hoya said a week or so ago when news broke that Conor Benn had left Matchroom for Zuffa Boxing.
Something he said to Eddie Hearn. Don't worry about it. The fighters come and go, but the promoters remain. The promoters stay.
Not focusing on the promoter part, but the fighter part, it's absolutely true that fighters come and go, rise and fall like the wheat. Yesterday's hot topic is today's old news. That's what Gervonta Davis is fast becoming with all of his legal issues that are keeping him out of the ring, and even before that, all the people that he wasn't fighting, that's what he was becoming. Because the reception for the Frank Martin fight and the reception for the Lamont Roach fight, he didn't do with those fights what he did with Ryan. He didn't go from strength to strength.
Bigger and better.
Mentored by Floyd Mayweather for a good number of years, he didn't exactly go on to become his successor.
Because there is a rabble of mouth breathers in the United States eagerly waiting for his ring return. Return to fight who? Because it's not going to be Shakur.
If it's not going to be Shakur and the other fighters like him, then who gives a damn if he comes back?
He got caught.
He got caught. Yeah.
So, like, I don't know. Like, for me personally, if you got caught, it's like, I can't give you the credit for that. I don't give him credit for that night with Devin.
Yeah, but steroids don't help you land punches.
I get you.
They help you recover in training. They help you train a little harder. They might give you a little bit more power, but that left hook was on point.
Yeah, but that little bit of more power probably wasn't enough to hurt Devin. Because if you really watch the fight and pay attention to the fight, and people might not agree with me on this, but I feel like Devin was winning the moments that was quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Like when people's not really, Devin is winning most of the like boxing match, but the moments where Ryan was so loud and like everybody got to see him get hurt and knocked down, to where like I just feel like Devin, if he didn't get dropped by them punches, he could have won that fight.
But he did get dropped.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Yeah. And also,
but what if the Osterring was helping his power?
I mean,
it's a curious subject. What was the role of Osterring in Ryan Garcia's performance against Devin Haney? To what portion can you contribute the Osterring to Ryan's success? It is true what Joe Rogan stated. You don't take a banned substance and suddenly become a better boxer with better X's and O's and fundamentals and footwork.
Take a little bit of TRT and you're suddenly Sugar Ray Robinson. It doesn't work like that. But the way that it does work is there is an obvious physical benefit, which he stated. You get to train a little longer, train a little harder, recover better.
Because if there were no physical benefit to these banned substances, then so many boxers and other athletes in other sports wouldn't continually take them. I believe that we saw the difference in Ryan Garcia on Osterring and off Osterring in the Haney fight and the Romero fight, because in the Romero fight, he wasn't sharp, he wasn't explosive, he wasn't strong, he fought scared.
Got beat.
Jumps back on the Osterin for what was the Mario Barrios fight, and once again, you see the difference. So while taking a banned substance isn't going to necessarily make you a better boxer, it could make you a better physical specimen. It could make you a stronger boxer, a sharper boxer.
I don't see high ring IQ when I look at Ryan Garcia in action. I don't see great X's and O's or great footwork, fundamentals, defense, setups.
I don't see a great boxer. I just see a guy who's fast and punches hard, and if he can catch you, he can hurt you, like he hurt Devin. But that's about it.
Even though Ryan Garcia won the Mario Barrios fight emphatically, he still looked like a basic 1-2 fighter to me. Jab right hand.
Jab in a straight, followed by a jab in a straight. No improvisation. A guy in there who's so easy to hit. You dropped him in the early goings of the fight, but you couldn't finish him because you ain't got the ring savvy to open him up and land other punches. I don't see a great fighter in Ryan, a great boxer.
So Devin got beat by a guy who's not a great boxer?
Well, how great is Devin? I mean, outside of the jab in the straight and the occasional clinch whenever a guy breaks through, he's not much to write home about either. What I think happened to Devin was he was in there with a taller, longer fighter than he's used to, with some speed. He got caught, lost his temperament, and then kept getting caught.
Devin is a guy who largely benefited from a size advantage as a lightweight because he was a big lightweight, taller and longer than many of his opponents. For an outside guy, it's a lot easier to manage the distance when you're noticeably taller and longer than your opponents, but that wasn't the case with Ryan, who was not only tall, but he had speed.
Then what was the role of the Osterin?
It all matters. It all factors into the equation, including the Osterin. I believe Ryan deliberately took for a competitive edge. Start up with the Ryan Garcia's innocent crap. That kid's story changed too many times for me to believe him.
If you want my opinion and you're here, so I'll assume that you do, I absolutely believe that Ryan Garcia deliberately took the Osterin for a competitive edge, and it's just a question of how much did it contribute to his performance against Devin, and I believe the best gauge for that is the difference you saw in the Ryan Garcia that fought Devin Haney and the Ryan Garcia that fought Rolly Romero. With Devin, he was fast and he was sharp and he was switched on, whereas with Rolly, he was flat and he was scared and he was dejected,
Timid.
He didn't have the battery in his back that he had with Devin, that he just had with Mario, that added pep in his step.
You didn't have that.
So while taking a performance-enhancing drug is not going to make you an expert boxer, what it will make you is a better physical specimen, so that if you do land a punch, it'd be a lot more damaging on the Osterin than off of it, which is why Ryan took it.
They ain't taking it for no reason. If there were no palpable benefit to taking these banned substances, then so many athletes wouldn't use them in secret.
The way I see it, Joe saying taking drugs don't make you a better boxer. Ryan didn't beat Devin because he was the better boxer, but because he was the bigger boxer and the stronger boxer.
Faster.
I didn't see a whole lot of ring savvy, ring IQ from Ryan when he did beat Devin, and I didn't see much more when he just fought Mario. He's just a big kid, punches hard, and he's kinda fast. That's about it.
That's all. There's nothing spectacular about Ryan Garcia's boxing.